Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short sound check. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. Welcome to our special Flag Day program. This is August 24. We say happy Flag Day. Please unmute or please lower your device there. We want to get the show started right now. Again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from the headquarters of Focus on Liberia, that's in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to our special Monday, that's our Flag Day edition. We have our exciting topic, which is the meaning and the symbolism of the Liberian flag. We're going to be discussing that tonight with our very special guest who will be joining us tonight for this occasion. William, let's get this started. All right. So on that note, we want to welcome our guest. Joining us for the first time on Focus on Liberia is Call Family. Call, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Next, someone who is no stranger to this platform, Mr. Leo Nupulu Johnson, joining us from Canada. Leo, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Jah.
Also, joining us for the second or third time on Focus on Liberia is Prince B. Williams. He now has a new name, but he's going to call it for us tonight. Prince, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, Dennis, and thanks to the family of the Focus on Liberia family and the establishment. Thank you so much.
All right. So we're going to quickly go around the room to get a quick introduction, and we're going to start with the lady who's joining us for the first time. And you got to be careful how to pronounce the name. There are two variations, Ko and Ko, depending on which part of Nimba you're coming from. If
That's
you are like
right.
from the Guinea side, from Bosu or Lola, you will say Ko. So Ko, go ahead. A little bit about yourself and welcome again to Focus on Liberia.
Yeah, my name is Call Yin. My married name is Fambula. And I'm from Ga clan on both sides of my family, Nimba. And Ga clan is right at the Guinea border. I have my cousins in both Nimba and in Guinea. And I can trace my roots back many generations. And we just, my people, that's who we are. Proud Liberian, and I'm proud to have come from a people who have never been colonized, unlike my cousins in Guinea who have been colonized. I'm a very proud Liberian, and I'm proud of the establishment of this republic by the permission and the consent, contrary to what people think, permission and consent of my forefathers and mothers. So I'm again proud daughter of God clan, and I exist here as a Liberian of my free will and the free will of my ancestors. We were not conquered, we were not colonized. We are Liberians by our consent. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole, and welcome once again to Focus on Liberia. Next, let me bring in Prince William Wulayini. Prince, welcome. A little bit about yourself.
Dennis, how you doing? Thank you very much. And Cole, it's a pleasure getting to know you and getting to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Well, by the way, my name is Prince Cloud Wulayini. I know most of you may see my name on here at Prince B. Williams. That's my adopted name. Well, my new name, as it is my traditional inheritance, inheritor and ancestor's name that I'm in the process of changing. I'm in the process of changing. So By the way, I hail from three distinct counties. I was born in Margibi County, Firestone, but my grandfather is from Lofa, and my grandmother is from Grand Cru, Barclayville. I grew up mostly in Margibi County prior to coming to Monrovia because of the war, and then subsequently coming to the United States. I'm in Tennessee. It is known as the Volunteer State, and I'm glad to be here today. I have a passion for my nation. I believe Liberia, I studied Liberia history, and the founding of Liberia is by divine providence. And whatever is happening in Liberia is happening because of the essence of that nation, and by the grace of God, and by the benevolence of the great Creator, Liberia will be what it intends to be. And I'm here to discuss the flag of Liberia, and we will have different views and opinions, but we'll try to help to give the historical context as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady. I'm here. I'm glad to be here. Thank you all so much. The view, and you go ahead and share this and comment on what we'll be discussing here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's welcome Mr. Leo Nupulu Johnson. Leo, a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jha. My name is Leo Nupolu Johnson. Once again, I am the president of the Liberian Association of Canada. Also a Liberian, born and reared in Liberia, currently living in Canada. And I often say I am one of those Liberians who is in search of correcting some of the misinformation that we have been giving as a country for a very long time, and we seem to have dwelt on it, simply because those who are the custodians of our history, for some reason, decided that they would keep their relevance, but not fully letting us know both the good and the bad. Instead, they have selectively told us what they want us to know. So I'm excited to be on this conversation with other distinguished Liberians as well, to learn, to listen, and to share what I've got to share as well.
And we're going to be learning and sharing on the meaning and the symbolism of the Liberian flag. So as William started already, we want to start with some history here. We see that we read in grade school, the flag of Liberia was designed by a committee of 7 ladies headed by Susanna Lewis. There are some people who are, they have all kinds of things to say about that history. So that would be our first place to start from. Let's look at the history of the Liberian flag. Some say it was designed. Some say no, it was copied. Things were made up. So let's start and go around the room and talk about the history, what we know about the history of the Liberian flag. Let's start with Prince.
Well, Dennis, you kind of gave a little bit of a glimpse on what we'll be discussing the history as it relates to our country. And you are indeed right. Liberia flag is shrouded in controversy, and is shrouded in what I may say mystery, because we believe that this flag was designed and 7 ladies who were led by Susanna Lewis. That is what we lay in our history, and those are all historical connotation. But before I go deeper into that, because we will be discussing 3 things here, I believe, and we'll be discussing things as it concerns the originality of our flag, and whether it was copied, whether it was designed, or whether the whole story was made up. So I'm glad to be a part of this the discussion, and thank you very much. And I will later on expand more on that as well.
Let's go to Carl.
Yeah, I spent the last about 12 years digging up primary text documents on Liberian history. In fact, longer than that, but consistently for 12 years. I first took interest specifically in Liberian history when I was a freshman at the University of Minnesota many, many years ago. I won't age myself here on Facebook, but I would go into the archives of Wilson Library, and they had a lot of original documents that you had to wear gloves to view, and you go into a special humidity-controlled room, and they had these old American Colonization Society documents, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why are these sitting in Minnesota? And how many other universities have such documents? And so I'm saying all of that to say, I really could care less about the folklore and the, the mythology that surrounds, these post, 1920 history books that were written. I'm more concerned about getting to the roots, the origin of all of this. And the Liberian flag, whether you want to buy into the mythology around how it was created, originally, there is no such myth. If you look back at books that were written contemporary in the 19th century, 1847, 1848, you look at a lot of the documentation that William Innes wrote, many others, Blyden, they don't talk about the mythology. The primary source documents talk about the necessity that gave birth to the flag and what it means. And that's what my concern is. What does it symbolize? We have 11 stripes that symbolize the 11 delegates that were present. You have the blue square, which is very important because I think a lot of people don't realize that blue square represents the continent of Africa. And then the white star is supposed to represent us, the lone beacon of hope on this continent, a shining light of hope on the continent of Africa, which is the purpose for which Liberia was established. The purpose for which we were established was as an asylum for freedom and self-determination for African people. And the founders knew they were African. Whether their descendants generations later knew they were African or not is not my concern. But as we talk about the flag and the legacy and the purpose for which our country was established, we need to go back to the source and focus on the intent, not what was sidelined and sidetracked, right? What was the roadmap? What's the blueprint that was laid out for us that we have very steered away from? And that star, that bright star shining on the continent of Africa, that asylum for African excellence, for African self-governance in the midst of the 19th century slave trade, the slave Holocaust. You had a group of individuals who were defiant to white global supremacy, who defied the subjugation of their people based on the color of their skin, who stood up in defiance, people like Lot Carey, who were willing to stay and die in Liberia as opposed to run away with Hootie Ashman and others. This powerful and profound history that established this country, the indigenous people who protected the colony that they could have crushed at any time during its establishment. But by their consent and their support, it existed. We need to remember the stories that they wrote at the time that the things were going on, not the brainwashing and the mythology that came later. So that's my primary concern. Excuse me, my daughter's here. You can go to someone else.
Right. And we'll come back.
I'm going to put this on mute. Hold on.
What that mythology is. But let's go to Leo Johnson. Leo, your first comments on the history of the flag. Was it designed, copied, or is it a made-up story?
I will give my analysis and leave people to talk for themselves. But there are a few things I'd like to set straight. I think the first thing I would like to correct is the fact that, again, when I talk about the fact that we have been misled many times with different things, was the fact that we were made and taught in school that at the beginning of the Liberian flag started with the 11 persons committee with the designing of the flag. I think that's the first misinformation, and that information is not correct. Thank goodness we are now in places where we can do a little bit of digging to know that the Liberian flag, what became the Liberian flag, the basis of it was started on way back in 1827, specifically on April 9th, 1827. And that flag was directly copied on the basis of the American flag. In fact, it used to have 13 equal horizontal stripes, exactly as a replica of the United States flag. And then the only thing that was changed, there was a blue canton with a white cross in the middle of the blue canton. That was the original basis of the Liberian flag. Later in 1847, when official independence was declared, that was when the blue canton and the white cross was then modified by this 11 persons committee and turned into a star and then giving a new meaning. Now, am I here to debate what their thought processes were or not? That would be very difficult because we were not present and we can only listen to what we are reading and we've been told. But the one thing that I have, I seem to be trouble with is this push for us to not acknowledge that the flag was copied by and large in the very beginning and later on modified, but even the modification did not veer off too far from what was originally copied. And let me just put it this way. It kind of baffles me to see that the meanings I've been giving to our flag, if when I think about it and reflect a little bit, right? When people talk about the blue canton or the blue field representing the black continent of Africa, I'm wondering why it wasn't black. If it was truly a reflection of the dark continent, we had to go as far as a blue shade to try and represent, because if anything is synonymous with the continent of Africa, in my opinion, I would have thought it should have been black, but that's a debate for another day. And let's look at some of the other things. The red representing the blood that was spilled. Like, my question is, whose blood? When we try to look at our history, it's a very controversial topic to talk about the blood whose blood was being referenced to be represented on a national symbol that should be reflective of the entire country. So, in my opinion, and this is no criticism or whatever, the people of those days, I'm pretty sure, had to make decisions based on what they were exposed to. They could have only used their experiences to draw on to develop what they taught. And by all historical accounts, we know that there was this quest for wanting to replicate the United States of America. By all historical accounts, that was a huge push by the settlers when it came to like what is now Liberia. They wanted to recreate this fantasy of what the United States, what they had seen in the US in what was now Liberia. And in so doing, did a lot of things, including our flag, to represent just the 10 to 15% of them and excluded the 85 to 90% of the other people. Now, what about design? What about hate? Or what about mistake? Or just because of the reality? I'm not going to debate that. But one thing that is very clear is that up to 85 to 90% of the people who were original inhabitants of the land were excluded from all these decisions making because people wanted to replicate the fantasy of what they have left back in the United States, trying to replicate that in what is now Liberia.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia on our special Flag Day program. We are discussing the meaning and the symbolism of the Liberian flag. Our guest, Mr. Leo Nupulu Johnson, joining us from Canada, Mr. Prince B. Williams, joining us from Tennessee, the volunteer state, and Mrs. Carl Famula, who's joining us from Georgia. William, we have a show.
Yeah, I will throw a little bit of light on that. First of all, we have to realize that when we talk about flags, I'm always very, very particular. What are we trying to actually represent? Flags, the history of flags comes from military standards. The actual origin, when you look at flags as far back, it was military standards used to represent different fields, used to represent defeat when your flag was actually dropped.
Hold on, William Chag, we are having volume issue to say? Are we having sound problem?
So,
Okay, go ahead, Leo. I think we're good.
All right, thank you. So as I was saying, flags were associated with military standards. And then when you come down to what we now call national flags, were actually brought about by the Islamic tradition when it came to representing, and because they didn't like to have symbolic idols, they were putting flags. But let's talk about why we had to resemble the American flag. It was clear our brothers and sisters who came back to the continent as free slaves, or who, after the horrible experience of slavery in the United States, joining back to what is now Liberia, did not see themselves as part of the land that they actually got on. They felt that they saw themselves as conquerors of where they had come. And so they felt like they had a responsibility of bringing back the cultures and traditions and things that they had actually lived through. Now, I'm not here to judge them as to what the motives were, but clearly it had a serious clash with those that it met on the land, which led to a lot.
I'm gonna have to point of interjection. I don't like when people. I have to interrupt him because this is complete.
You have your time, Carl. If you don't mind.
No. But I'm not going to sit on a panel where people spew misinformation without sources.
Carl, you can.
There's nowhere that ever documented that they came here to conquer anything.
Hold on,
and so if you're going to say
that, to my opinions anymore.
No, we're entitled to informed opinions. But if you're going to sit on a panel with me, I want sources. And if I say something that you don't agree with, you're going to ask me for a source. I will cite a source.
I would not call you. Hold on, Carl. Let him finish.
I mean, there's a lot of misinformation. Even the color red doesn't represent blood on our flag. It's written nowhere. So that's not what it represents. It represents courage. That's what's documented. So if we're going to say things, it has to be.
Thank goodness I'm not the only one who went to elementary school in Liberia here.
But that's not what it represents. That's not what it represents. If somebody misinformed you as a child,
that was spelled. That's what it represents.
That's not what it represents, though. That's not documented anywhere.
Cole, hold on, let him finish.
It's not documented anywhere.
Dennis,
where's that documented?
Dennis,
go ahead, Leo.
I'm just saying. I thought we came for a debate and not a quarrel. I wouldn't like to get into a quarrel. I would make my points, and if Cole or our sister Cole or anyone disagree, I think they will have the opportunity to come back.
Go ahead. Cole will have a chance. After Leo, Cole, you unmute yourself, please, and come in. Go ahead, Leo. And William, please check your microphone. Go ahead, Leo.
All right, thank you. So, like I was saying, whatever the motives of our brothers and sisters who came back was, I don't know, and I'm not going to claim to know. I can only think that based on what they had experienced in the United States, most of them were not even connected to Africa at all, because they were descendants of generations of people who have been brought. So they were exposed to the cultures that they had gone through, which is what even led to the type of governments that got set up, where almost 80% of the native people on the land were subjected to what we call inhumane treatment for a very long time, for over 100 years in our history. We know that, we lived that, our parents lived that. We saw some of them go through it. So the Liberian flag itself, there was a serious drive to replicate what was experienced, or what the vision that they had in the United States was to replicate it in the Republic of Liberia. So our flag, the direct link to representing the United States, like many other things, like the names of our streets, like the name of our Capitol building, like the name of our seats of government, all of them, like our Pledge of Allegiance, is a direct copy of the United States. They only removed United States and put Liberia, literally. It's a direct photocopy of it. So if you want to find semblance of evidence, you don't need to go too far. There are many other things, and our flag is just another one. Now, is that bad or good? I'm not here to debate if it is bad or good, because at the end of the day, what it comes to symbolize will be where the debate will be as to what does it really mean? Does it represent all of us? Is it the best national symbol we can come up with? That is the different argument. I think we can talk about that. But when it comes to the facts, yes, there was a drive to have the United States, a lot of things in the U.S. represented in what is now Liberia.
Okay, thank you. Leo, one of the things we're trying to get to is why. So I know you mentioned that it was a lot of copy, but the question is, what are your thoughts on why? And then we'll go to a call to Connor. But do you have any idea why? If you
like I said earlier, it's the only thing they have been exposed to. If you go somewhere, for the length of time that slavery existed in the United States, our brothers and sisters, some of whom were children of people who were originally brought as slaves, their only experience has been the racist culture of the American South, the largely American South, where they were subjected to less than human beings. People believed that the only way they could get ahead was to subject Black people to less than human beings. The slave treatment the horrible treatment that they endure in the American South for most of their lives. That was the only experience that they had. So going back, the only thing they were exposed to and knew was the culture that they had been exposed to. They were not exposed to African cultures. They knew very little about it, only the semblance that were left on the plantation that they could actually remember that was still used. Africa was almost like a strange land to them. They had to find a way to either reintegrate or copy what they were exposed to and what they felt they knew best to be able to survive.
Thank you, Leo. Let's hear from Cowell, then we go to Prince. Cowell was coming to make a point. Cowell, unmute yourself, please, and then.
Okay. That's not what the red on the flag represents. The first thing is that's documented absolutely nowhere. And the red represents courage. That's what's documented everywhere. If you go any original source document, you can just Google it. Go to Wikipedia. That's not what the red represents. It does not represent bloodshed. It represents courage and valor. So I don't know. And also the Liberian flag has never had a cross. That was the American Colonization Society flag, which before the Republic of Liberia was established, the American Colonization Society flew a flag that had a cross because it was a Christian organization. But the Republic of Liberia was not established as a Christian nation. So those who established independence were adamant that they remove the flag because they said it was not a Christian nation. And if you read the original Constitution, it was all about talking about religious freedom, and it was far ahead of its time. So I just wanted to make that first correction. One of the things that I've realized as I've taken on this journey of studying our history from primary source documents and not from narratives that people have been fed, is that the profound knowledge and the audacity of the founders has been buried and it's been replaced by the 20th century traitors who basically betrayed the intention of the country. And Liberia was never established by conquerors. This is a false narrative. There is nowhere in the original documentation of the people who established the country, nor the observers from other countries who also wrote about Liberia, have they ever called this place or called the Colonization Society a conquering body, a militaristic, imperialistic effort. No. In fact, they came, most of the problems that the Liberian Republic had with its neighbors, which were trying to conquer indigenous people, was that the Liberians, I'm talking about when it was established, I'm not talking about 1920, I'm not talking about the 1940s, I'm talking about the 1800s. If you read Anderson, if you read Blyden, anyone from that time period, you will understand that they knew very well they were African. The second thing is the misnomer that everybody that repatriated to Liberia was multi-generationally American is not true. Some of them were actually born in Africa, had been taken into slavery, bought their freedom or were granted their freedom and returned. So it was not just to say, oh, everybody that had been to America for many generations. Some of these people had only been here for 1 or 2 generations. They still knew that their grandfather was Yoruba. They still knew that they had, whatever ethnic background. There were people people who were actually born in Africa, enslaved in Africa, taken to the New World, some of which were freed right away. Some of them were freed from ships. So the concept of this group of people that had a plantation lifestyle that returned is not correct. It is not historically factual. The other point that I want to make here is this, and then I'll rest. I'm more concerned about my indigenous people. And my indigenous people were not stateless. We were not naked and afraid, running around in the jungle, waiting for somebody to come and give us a country. This place that we call the Grain Coast had many nations that were at war, that were at peace, that were allies, that were enemies. There was a lot going on here. We had been trading with people for centuries. There were missionaries here for over 130 years before 1822, interacting with our people. Many of our kings spoke Portuguese. Many of our kings spoke Arabic. Many of our kings spoke French and many other languages before 1822. We had cannons and guns and our muskets, I should say. We had cannons and muskets before 1822. King Boatswain, as they call Sao Boso, was a militaristic leader. These were not people sitting around waiting to be conquered by a handful of hungry and confused settlers. So that narrative, trying to paint indigenous people as if we were some kind of isolated, spear-chucking jungle bunnies jumping around with beating drum without any type of power, is a lie. If you read primary source documents from that time period, you will understand the type of power and negotiation skills that our people had at that time in history. And so the false narrative of this victimized group of people, as if, first of all, we were some homogenous group of people, as if there's one thing called native people. It is a lie. It is a false narrative. There were many things happening in this space they call the Grain Coast. And there were many conflicts occurring between the people that populated this area called the Grain Coast that lasted through the 20th century. We had centuries of warfare. We were heavily engaged in trade and conquest. We captured and sold people. The Vi almost wiped out the entire Day population. They were almost decimated. So to make this picture of some pitiful natives that were sitting down on the beach or in the bush and people came and forced things upon them is not true. Liberia exists at the consent. There is no time in the entire history of this republic when what they estimated in 1847 to be roughly 1 million inhabitants of the hinterland. There's no time in the history of this country that that population, various armies, various nations, various kingdoms could not have wiped out that coastal settlement. It existed at the consent of those kings. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I just have a quick question. William, I wanted to ask, I didn't want to talk over, I have a very quick question.
Yes, hold on. Wait, Prince is getting bored now, so let's bring Prince in.
I don't want to, Dennis. I agree, our Prince. If you don't mind, Prince, is that okay? I don't want my sister to.
I sincerely, I am profoundly excited about the discussion. I'm not bored. The only thing that is happening, if you let her with the continue talking, she will end up being exhausting all my points and all my notes.
I just want a very key question for her. I really want her to actually speak to it. I didn't want to cut her off.
Actually, Kowu is stressing some very, 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 very important historical facts, not just facts based on a narrative, but facts based on a historical account have been well documented.
Yeah, I just asked you. Let me clarify before. There are a few things that she challenged. I want to clarify.
Yeah, Leo, let's Prince just jot down. Let's Prince continue.
I'm just wondering because you allow Kowu to interrupt me for as long as possible.
Dennis, I will use about 5 minutes of my time to Leo to make whatever point you want to make.
Thank you so much, Prince. I actually really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify a few things for you, Kowu. When you spoke of the flag, you said it was the American colonization and not Liberia. But then when you talk about Liberia, you said this nation, Liberia, existed long before. In terms of clarification, by the way, all of your second section of your points, I fully agree with you. Hundreds of tribes and tribal nations existed in Liberia. My question to you is, who did Matela Nipo defend? Who did she defend Cape Maserati against in 1822 when she fired the cannonball? Who was she defending?
Okay, so you want me to answer the question?
No, yeah, I'm just asking because you said there was never a time that there was a war of conquest that anybody carried on.
That's not what I said.
Okay, can you?
But I'll answer your question.
Go ahead.
So the Matilda Newport story is clearly embellished, right? Her name was Matilda Spencer when she disembarked the ship. She was married to someone else. And like I said, 20th century history was, rewritten mostly by missionaries, and they didn't have the energy or the time or the concern or the need. They didn't give a rat's tail about our history to actually account for actual stories. So they just embellished things.
Oh, so it never happened?
No, it never happened, in my opinion. Based on my studies.
That's just the point. So that means
there were conflicts. There were conflicts.
No, you just told me there was no conflict of any conquest.
That's not what I said. What I said was the intention of this establishment of the organ of the colony was not one of conquest.
But I didn't talk about the establishment of the colony.
So they defended themselves because the Dey were incited by Pedro Blanco to wipe out the colony because it stood against the slave trade.
That is not my.
And this is documented. For the real wars that were occurring, the attacks against the colony, and this is documented by slave traders. They were instigating these attacks against the colony because they felt the colony was a threat to the slave trade. It was never really over land. It was about the right for them to continue to trade in human beings.
Let's not take up Prince time.
And so it's documented.
Okay.
Let's not take up Prince time. How do you expect us to believe?
You asked a question. Let me answer it.
Right. That's why I want to
told me that everything we've been taught, including Matera Nipo, is false. Then you convincing me.
I didn't say everything was false. I said I'm not convinced that. I think that's one of those 20th century historical accounts that was embellished. But like I said,
embellished or false? Was it embellished or false?
If you go back to primary source.
Was it embellished or it was false?
Mr. Leo and Leo
Matilda Newport existed. She existed, and there's nothing from the primary source documents that I've read that says that that she would fire the cannon. So that's something that you don't see until the 1940s.
Okay.
So my conclusion is that it was embellished.
Dennis.
Prince, please check your microphone. It's kind of loud and it's
actually grinding. Yeah.
Yes, it's in and out. So go ahead, please make your point.
Okay, thank you very much. Dennis, I think we are here to discuss the Liberian flag, the origin, the meaning, and the narrative of it. And I listened to Leo's positions and points, but I would like to come from this position. Look, Liberia, like Kowu stated, has been a multifaceted process, an experiment, and both a controversy that have been going on for years.
Right.
The stress here is this, is that any nation, in its formulation, there has always been this process of adaptation and even this process of assimilation. For example, I will give you a brief history of America, because if we are looking at Liberia as a nation in this context, it's a nation that has been directly originated from the United States, or exported from the United States, or transported from the United States onto the continent of Africa. Now, if you want to look at the leaves of the tree and determine the health of the tree, you must go down to the root of that tree. Now, let's go to the root of this tree. Even the United States of America itself has gone through a series of transformative process in its own flag. When the United States were established in 1776, the first flag was an adaptation of the British flag. If you look at the United States first flag, it was a replica copy of the British flag. The only difference, there was a cross, and then within a field of the Union Jack. And then through the process, American flag had gone through almost 26 different changes in this process to the flag that we have today. Now, the flag that we have today is a direct representation or a direct reflection of the United States that we have today, in compilation of all the different contributions of different states and arbitration to different sources of inspiration that have governed and make this United States to be what it is today. So I want to tell Leo that what Kowu is saying is that our nation too is going through the same process. even as we speak today. Although it has been a slow, grinding, a process of one step behind, 10 steps, one step forward and 10 steps behind, but we are going through the same process. Like I will say that to you, in Liberia as a country have a flag. This flag is what we are discussing today.
Okay.
Before Liberia became a country, there were different colonies. You had the Mississippi colony, which is now known as Sano. You had the American Colonization Society, which are based in the Cape of Montserrat. They had their own flag. Their flag gave aspiration and inspiration to them. It was a flag that had the cross in there because they were hoping to establish a Christian nation in Africa. But when Liberia declared independence in 1847, when all the different colonies or the different Commonwealth at that time they were known as Commonwealth, when they were coming together to establish a nation called Liberia, a sovereign nation, they decided that this nation would not be a nation that is tied to any. It will not be based on. It will have a religious detached from religious connotation. So Liberia was founded not as a Christian nation, but as a free state, and then it adapts that of what. Yet the flag we have today is a complete adaptation of the United States, and I don't see nothing wrong with that because every nation does the same thing. Even the United States adopted the British flag, and then the transformation process that yielded or resulted into the current flag, and that is what I'm here to discuss, and that is what I think that we should be talking about: how our nation can be evolved from a caterpillar into a beautiful butterfly by changing and adapting of national flag or national emblems that will represent and directly be an inclusive one, like what Kohu was saying. The area that we know today, the geographical area we know today, there were many nations in that area. It was not, I mean, there were 3 nations of native people, and there were 3 nations, Commonwealth of the settlers. So it's unfair for us to just neglect and that part of our history and not be inclusive and include our native brethren contribution they made to as well. So I want to say that that's my position. I come here to discuss that I think the American flag needs to go through that evolution that the American flag went through. Yes, we appreciate the star, the scraps, all those things at that time, but it has lost its essence. We need to adapt and change our flag that will reflect our national identity, that will bring us together more or less cohesively instead of just being attributed to one group of contribution. Thank you very much. I reserve the rest.
Thank you.
Dennis, go ahead.
That leads us to the next question, which is a flag, has been known is a symbol, right? So wherever the Liberian flag is flown, wherever you see it, describe for me that sense of pride, that patriotism that you see in the Liberian flag. And what's your feeling when you see that flag flying? Let me start with Carl this time.
I'm very proud of the Liberian flag, and I see myself in it. And I see myself in it mainly because my ancestors didn't believe in flag business. I think Prince did a very good job of giving the history of flags. And this idea of a beacon of hope, this idea of a beacon of excellence on the west coast of Africa, on the dark continent of Africa, or on the continent of Africa in general, I think it's something that we should all strive for. And I don't think that that excludes me. I don't feel that it means that, oh, it doesn't mean indigenous people. I don't see how that symbol of freedom excludes my ancestors. So for me, I wouldn't have an issue with the flag being evolved into something else. But I definitely have an issue with this narrative that indigenous people did not contribute to the establishment of the Republic of Liberia under this very flag, even before the flag was created, even before 1847. This idea that there was no indigenous people participating in the establishment of Liberia is absolutely false. It's well documented. So for me, it is my flag. I embrace it. I wave it. I adore it. I respect it. And I hope that we continue with this flag. I think the history is powerful. I have said multiple times, this is the first Pan-African flag, because it was the people who established this republic that inspired Garvey to even create a Pan-Africanist movement. It was the people who established this republic that was the first flag to ever represent the continent of Africa. Is the Liberian
Before
flag.
you continue your call, how can you say that this flag is a direct copy or replica of the United States, and at the same time say that this is a Pan-Africanist flag?
I don't think it's an exact replica. I think it was inspired. The colors clearly were inspired and the design is clearly inspired. What I'm talking about, the meaning and the symbolism. The meaning that was ascribed to it is what I'm talking about.
Good point. Let me go to Prince. Same question. Your sense of pride and patriotism when you see the flag being flown anywhere.
Well, first of all, let me apologize. I know there's a background noise with my kids.
You are excused. Kids are actually okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
This is COVID time.
Dennis, honestly to you, to be frank with you, I'm going through a process myself as a person, and the process I'm going through is part of what nature dictates. That process of evolution or change, that process that represents and make you to find yourself and define yourself. That's why you see my name Williams is being changed to my grandmother ancestor's name, because I feel that I hold the obligation to be able to give a tribute, honor and restore the house of my great grandfather family who have contributed to me being here today. So, and having said that, I'm a proud Liberian, but I feel that Liberia, like Kou said, the ideology that formed this country have been betrayed. It was betrayed. Absolutely. It was betrayed. As a consequence of that, in the entire continent have been betrayed as well. Liberia was, yes, along the notion that the blue field is Africa, and what Leo said in that case, then why wasn't it black field? Because Africa is symbolically black continent. But I enjoy the idea. I like the idea. But if that idea cannot emphasize, it cannot change. It cannot evolve. Like from being a caterpillar into a beautiful butterfly, if that idea cannot evolve, there's something fundamentally wrong. That's why I gave the history of the United States. Yeah. I just do a synopsis of the history of the United States flag. The United States flag went through a whole lot of changes. Today now,
Prince, prior to that change, what do you feel right now when the Liberian flag is flying?
At this moment, I feel a little bit of sense of confusion.
Thank you. Leo?
Yeah, so first of all, Dennis, let me adjust myself to this debate, because at no point anybody, including myself, is intimating that indigenous people on the land did not contribute to the establishment of what is the country. In fact, they were there long before, and there was life existing there in forms of governance going on. So I think the debate went in a completely different direction. The question was clear with the Liberian flag. Do you think it's a direct replica or copy from the United States, or was it something that was designed and inspired? And I maintain my point, and I think to a large extent, most people agree. Prince agrees particularly that yes, it was copied. Now, I made it clear. I'm not here to judge the motives. I can't sit here and fool myself to pretend like I have authority over the motives that inspire that. But another thing I would also like to clear, because there's a confusion when people talk about the state Liberia and Liberia, the place. Those are two different things. We all know the history. This place existed with much of richness of culture and tribes long before anybody showed up there as a settler. We know that very well. So when I'm talking about Liberia, we are talking about the state. So when people start to hold me back and go to the historical times, that's not my argument. I agree with all of that. We are arguing about the state Liberia as it was formed as a state called Liberia. So I just wanted to clarify those points before it looked like I was saying Liberia was in a vacuum and people show up and actually liberated it and native people did not contribute anything to it. No, I'm not saying that. I fully agree with all the historical analysis that has been made. Now, let me come to my point about the Liberian flag flying. I am conflicted. I am conflicted because number one, we are yet still debating what is the truth from the lie. Now, my sister Cole has had the opportunity to go to a library where there are documents that she's able to even see in temperature control rooms, right? But I can tell you that 85 to 90% of our nation will not ever have that opportunity, or they will never even have any opportunity at all to ever see some of those documents. So how can we be living this contradiction of ourselves at the same time saying, the Liberian flag, when I look at it, to be frank with you, I owe my allegiance to my country. I love my country. I would die for it. But that flag does not evoke anything inside of me. I don't see anything inside of me based on everything I've searched when it comes to our cultures, our traditions, who we are as a people on the African continent overall. So I'm not even able to say that flag is a Pan-African flag. There's no African country I can walk into that any African can tell me. The first thing my fellow African brothers and sisters ask me is, oh, that looks like the Puerto Rican flag, or that looks like the American flag. Nobody makes a mistake to say that looks like an African cultural flag. So for me personally, we should not equate our allegiance to our country and our dedication to our country in a controversial flag that we are still debating about how we evolve it. Until we can evolve it to what it really should be and stand for, which I agree with, let's face the fact. I owe my allegiance to my country. I'm not going to reduce it to because a flag is controversial and an argument of it. That has nothing to do with my dedication and allegiance to my country. That flag evokes conflict, confusion inside of me. It does not evoke what it should evoke when it comes to my allegiance and dedication to my country.
Why is that?
Here is why. Because we are still fighting this conflict of the actual occurrences in our country when the settlers arrived, when they set up what is today the Republic of Liberia. Let me say it clearly. Our constitution that was set up from 1847 to 1986 has been unanimously regarded by most scholars as being utterly racist and discriminatory. From 1847 to 1986. In 1986, our constitution was changed simply because our leaders then agreed that constitution did not reflect the true cosmopolitan mix of what was our country. It did not reflect the economic interests of everybody as it was written. Now, does that mean the people who wrote it were just wicked and bad? That is not my argument, because I know people will easily equate that. But I can admit, at least from my family line, what my mother went through as being a Liberian citizen and how my tribe was subjected to certain things, I can admit that constitution did not serve their interest. Now, why was it? We can argue that. So for me, until we can get to the place of having a conversation of what went wrong, to what the vision of this place should have been, a free black place, a place for all free black people to develop what Pan-Africanism should have looked like, where it went off the rails. Until we can be able to get to that point, I'm not going to live this illusion in my head that everything that was established it was so great, and only because we did not implement it. Based on all the counts in Liberia, that is not what has happened based on the actions that we have seen.
Thank you very much, Leo. Let me, Dennis, interject something here, please, because we're talking about colors. Just for our viewers and listeners, there are 11 countries in Africa that share the red, yellow, and green flag. They are rearranged and arranged in different orders, and some have stars and some don't. But there are 11 countries that have the red, the yellow, and green symbol. Okay, just something for food for thought. The other food for thought that is important for our listeners, so that you know, is that the flag of Liberia, the meaning of the red, white, and blue. There are different meanings from what the red, white, and blue represents in the United States currently at this moment. Dennis, please take it from there with the next line of questions.
All right, let me go to Cole. Based on what Leo have stated, to what extent do you feel that the flag, represent the whole country and not just a segment of the population, or is that even important at all?
I mean, it's extremely important. I mean, he's caught up on the colors, and I'm caught up on the meaning, right? Everything that this flag represents, valor, a beacon of hope.
Just a point of correction. I'm caught up on the history and where it came from, not the colors.
I mean, how far you want to go back? You want to say it's based on British colors? Like, I mean, what is that? We're talking about the flag was developed and what the flag means. Okay.
Liberia was
here's my issue. My problem that I have is he said a lot of things here that a lot of Liberians say all the time. Oh, we don't know this, we don't know this. There are a lot of things that we do know. There are too many free books available. You're sitting in Canada online that you can go. We have fought very hard to get a lot of these primary source documents scanned and made available for free on the public domain. So you no longer have to go to a library and sit down in a temperature controlled room because many of those documents have been scanned and they're available online. That's something that many people have fought to have happen. So it's available. Here's the issue. Once you go back and you read why Liberia was established, it will not be a question to you about why it was established as a Black republic or a republic for free people of color. In 1847, they were still hauling people off the west coast of Africa in chains. Okay, in 1847, they were literally still hauling people. Even though the slave trade had been legally abolished, it was still rampant. So the purpose for which Liberia was established, if you read the 1847 Constitution, even the land rights of indigenous people is written into that Constitution. Clearly written. Religious freedom is written into the 1847 Constitution. When people say, oh, it's a Christian nation, these are just things that people say based on nothing. The 1847 Constitution is available for free on Google. Just Google and download it. Read it for yourself. What is the purpose of us having access to information if we will not utilize it? The Matilda Newport story is something that, again, I have not seen pop up in history.
If I can stop you to direct you to the question I'm asking is, to what extent do you believe the flag represents the whole country and not just a segment of population? Flag is a symbol, right?
The flag represents the entire country. I don't see anyone in the Republic of Liberia that the meaning of that flag does not reflect. It should. I don't see how that flag would not reflect any child born in the Republic of Liberia. The meaning of that flag is profound.
Dennis, real quick, because I think some viewers, but we have to say this. The 11 stripes symbolize the signatories of Liberia Declaration, yes. The red and white symbolize courage and moral excellence. The white star represents the first independent republic in Africa, and the blue square represents the African continent. Now, for the U.S., the red symbolizes hardiness and valor. The white symbolizes purity and innocence, and the blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Those are the colors and what they are supposed to invoke.
Just to submit so that there is no argument, Cole was right to correct me in terms of the red. There was something else I was confused. So Cole, you were right. It represents courage. I want to set the record straight on that so that it doesn't look like there was a debate on it.
Thank you. And William, you read that. We know that from history. Since you're coming 1 second, I'm coming to you next.
I got
those people that went, they were 12 instead of 11. But I think when it came to the signature, I think that's where the problem is, that one of them was the secretary, and so he was not counted. That's why there is some confusion right there with the 12 and the 11. So let me go to you, Prince, about the representation. A flag is a symbol, so the flag represents the country. To what extent do you think this represents the entire country? You said earlier that you were conflicted.
Exactly, and this is where I kind of sort of disagree with Cole when she said that the flag does represent the entire country or the entire people. Well, I don't know at which period she was talking about, because I don't want to just disagree with her based on the part of disagreement. But the flag at one point in time did represent a certain population of the people. And I think it was not done intentionally. It was done something as an evolutionary process. I feel that the flag can be transformed. The flag can evolve. It can bring in other contributors or people who are contributed. Because now, as a flag, if you look at the history of a flag is just a direct identity and representation of a group, a collective group of people, or an object. And Kowu stated here that Liberia, there are a lot of native Liberian that contributed to the establishment of that nation called Liberia today. And we're talking about just 11 men or so that cemetery. Yes, we can evolve. We can change the flag to give a direct representation of the entire nation, to directly represent the nation as it is right now, because Liberia has since evolved. And that's like the history of Liberian, the American flag. The American flag have gone through a transformation. Can Liberia go through that transformation too, so that it can directly represent the entire people, so we can find our identity within the flag as a collective group of people, not just as a representing a certain group of people under the ideas. Can we do that? And that's what we can.
Prince, before call come in, why do you say the flag does not represent the entire country? Why you say that? What's the basis?
The basis is that I do feel that for my native background, where I come from the global the Kru tribe and the global tribe, those people fought to make sure that that land we consider today as Liberia were preserved, and it was not taken over by colonization. Do you often wonder why that particular area wasn't colonized, and all the years the colonization was going on, it wasn't colonized? That the reason it wasn't colonized, it was because of the staunch resistance of the natives. Even the Islam was unable to colonize that particular region because the natives was adamant. They wanted to keep the tradition, they wanted to keep the identity. They even fought against Islam. Like Kowu told you, yes, our people was not a bunch of people running around in the jungle with no clothes on. They were trained. They were even trained in the art of conventional warfare. They were using mustard or using candle. If you go through and check the history of Liberia, there is a U.S. Navy officer called Stoughton, which is named after the Stoughton Creek. If you check in a diary that he gave that regarding this fierce fighting of the natives, and even to the extent that at some point in time they suffered defeat at the hand of the natives, and the natives were not using bow and arrow; they were using musket, they were using weapons or sophisticated weapons. So my point I'm saying is that for their own, there has to be some symbolic or symbolism that will give a tribute to their own contribution. Is there any symbolism within the Liberian flag that represents my ancestor, my native background? I don't think so, and that's what I think that needs to be done. And there's nothing wrong with the flag. We transforming our flag to represent us as a collective body. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why I gave my background a point that United States flag was not the perfect flag as it is today, and it didn't remain as it was yesterday. It came through a transformation that represents now the 50 stars represent the 50 states of the United States, and then the 13 stripes represented the first original 13 colony. What can we do the same? What can we transfer our flag, transform our flag to represent us today as a nation, as a full-blown nation that is having a global impact, that had a global impact on the continent of West Africa, and that having an impact today. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you. Cole, you can come in so we can.
I just am curious of what part of the meaning of the flag doesn't represent you. Which part of the meaning doesn't represent you?
Which the part that just in 11 strap attributing to 11 men that signed the declaration.
And who are those 11 men?
Those 11 men. Mm-hmm. Those 11 men are all from the Commonwealth of the colony.
So I guess I'm asking the question. Hang on, I'm going to turn the video off a little bit because I don't want my child here. Be on audio. So I guess my question really is, anyway, you've answered it. You feel that the what we need to know is who those 11 men were. Who are those 11 men? And when you answer that question, then we can kind of go from there.
The 11 men were all representative of the original colony. They were all settlers. But
do you want to know their name, or you just want to know where they're from? Because they all represented the original full colony. The Mississippi which is now known.
The reason I asked that question is because the idea of who was a settler and who was a native becomes kind of a gray area for me as I read history. And this is why. There's a misnomer that a lot of the everybody who was participating in the Republic was
your argument within the reference of the historical facts. So that I'm trying to say that our people our native people contribution is not within the description of that flag that gave a direct representation of our country. That's what I'm simply trying. I
disagree, but okay.
And I just want to call Kawu to a correction here. When she said that 1847, the establishment of the country, this stuff was beautiful, written for everybody. Let me read the 1847 Constitution preamble. Like you said, we should go and Google it. So I Googled it. And it said, in fact, it was...
Mr. Johnson, can I borrow 2 minutes of your time if you be kind to me?
Go ahead, please.
And also, I want to disagree with you on the point that you made that our Constitution was racist. Liberian Constitution has never been racist.
I said by all the scholars, all of the analysis that were brought about.
As it relates to the scholars, Liberian Constitution has never been racist. It has been protectionist. And the reason protectionist because of the fact of the era Liberia was established in the essence, which it was established for the prevention and the exploration of freedom and also the prevention of slavery and the subjugation of the black race. So they are not racist.
Let me read something for you quickly, Prince Dennis, before you come in. According to the 1847 Constitution, I'm coming, Dennis. I need to. It's just one line. According to the 1847 Constitution, the only people that were allowed to vote when it comes to our electors were those who were considered land title deed holders. And at the time, our native people form of ownership was not based on land title deed. So that means that's the reason why we end up with a small, minute part of our population dominating the governance systems of our country for over 100 years. If that is not exclusionary, then I don't know what is, because the system of title deeds that were actually set up had only been to benefit a small portion of our population. Whether native participated or not, I cannot debate that, but I can tell you clearly that a majority of the population did not have the ability to participate in that. We're not given the same opportunity to hold title land deeds like a small percent. This is what the Constitution said.
So can I come in? Because this is my area of expertise is land tenure in Liberia.
That's the 1847 Constitution I just read.
The Constitution basically protected the land that you could not. There was no such. It protected the Native people's land. I didn't say that it allowed Native people to fully participate. To this day, 89% of the land in Liberia to this day still is in the hand of indigenous people. It's because of that 1847 Constitution.
But a legal system said you could only vote if you had land title.
Because the indigenous people were considered autonomous.
Okay, so that means they were not participating, right?
Hold on a second, gentlemen. I mean,
the indigenous people had their own government. Do you?
So they were not participating in the Republic of Liberia.
I have to clarify this right now.
So they were not participating.
You come to a place, you settle, you buy land, you establish a colony. Why would you force Madingo kings, Loma kings, Mano kings, Kru kings to participate in your government? Did the
Republic of Liberia cover the whole country?
It's the first question we should be asking. Did our ancestors want to be Liberian?
No, that's
when did our ancestors want to participate in the government? That should be the first question we should ask. Because do you know that most of our ancestors did not want anything to do with these people on the coast?
Oh, so they didn't want to be part of the governance?
They did not want to be part of the government. What they want, and they did not want to be colonized by the French. The reason that they fought French colonialism, the reason our ancestors fought French colonialism and British colonialism was because they wanted to remain self-governing. Okay. The reason they fought to maintain the Liberian territory, I'll speak specifically to the Northeast Territory. The North Central Territory. In what is now Nimba, Lofa, and Bong, if you look at the original shape of Liberia, Liberia used to reach as far north as Musaju, which is Zerikole in Guinea. The reason Liberia remained all the way where you see Nimba going all the way up there and Lofa going all the way up there is because our kings fought to keep that land within the Liberian territory because the Liberian government allowed them.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just asking you if this governance.
So if we wanted to govern ourselves, why would we want to participate in their system of land ownership when the chiefs already had control of their land? We
that is not my question.
Okay.
Dennis,
foreign
Dennis,
concept.
I don't want us
Land
to.
ownership in our tradition belonged to the chief, was a
But Carol, that
custodian
is
of the
not my
land.
point.
So the
You brought up my
Constitution
point.
is protecting our traditional land tenure. It's not imposing Western land tenure values upon
Oh,
us.
so now you
That's
agree
why
that
to
these
this
people
day,
keep to
if
impose
you want to
Western
do a
standards.
concession, you must go to
Hold
the
on,
chief
Leo.
and get permission.
So,
That
Cole.
is why. To
Dennis,
this
ask
day,
the
if
question.
you want
So
to
please allow
go,
me. The question is not answered.
it's not
Yeah,
exclusion,
hold
it's
on.
respect in the highest level.
Yeah,
That
so,
was not done by any
my
European
question
country.
is,
Cole, Prince,
I
hold on.
will
Hold
I
on,
be
Prince.
Let me finish my point.
Prince, hold on.
Let me finish my point.
Prince,
Allow
hold
me
on.
to finish my point. That was not done by any European settlers or conquerors of Africa, where they gave land tenure rights to indigenous people. It's only Liberia, on the entire continent of Africa, where this was allowed, where they said to their fellow citizens that the indigenous land rights and the indigenous land tenure will be respected, and it is written into the Constitution.
So, Cole,
So when you're talking about deeds and who can
Cole,
vote
let
and
me-
stuff like that, huh?
Cole,
my-
are you listening? What is your point? Because
My
So
point
Dennis,
here
Dennis,
is
I don't think you answered the point. So answer my point.
it's a misrepresentation
you were
of the
coming.
fact. The fact here is you have a semi-autonomous group of people who were being managed by their own traditions, their own kings, their own religious systems, and now you're arguing that those people were being mistreated because they were not forced and conquered and subdued by the Liberian government, fully incorporated. Is that what they wanted? No, it's not what they wanted.
Okay,
You have
thank you.
single kings in in Buffalo. You've got
Thank-
Muslim kings in Lofa. You think they wanted to be a part of Liberia at that time? The Constitution was drafted. They didn't want to be part of the Republic.
Okay, thank you, Cole. Let Leo ask his question. Leo,
Because
go
Cole
ahead.
is not speaking to my point. My point is, if the people being elected had the authority to govern the entire what was the Republic of Liberia.
They did not. That's what you're missing. They did not have the authority to govern the entire republic. That's the point you're missing.
Oh, I'm just coming. According from 1847 to 1979, our constitution was amended several times actually in between there to extend the terms of the president and all that stuff. Even coming up to the 30s and 40s. We know
We're
about
talking about the 1847 Constitution and the flag.
I'm talking about 1847 Constitution. That's what I'm speaking about. It wasn't changed in 1986. It was in force until 1986. So let me just say
That is
this.
correct.
We all know about the Finanopo labor crisis. I don't need to tell you that. So if you're telling me the government of the Republic of Liberia was only being elected by a small portion of people who were considered to be land title deed holders, but they had authority and power over the entire jurisdiction of what was the Republic of Liberia, according to the Constitution. That's what the Constitution says. But you tell me that it was to write it. If our people wanted to be governed semi-autonomously, why do we have to write? I'm coming. Why did we have to write in the Constitution to exclude them? Why did we have to go to the length of making a law to have them excluded? That was the point.
All right. Let's go to the I don't want us to make it into a history. Let's come back to the flag.
Dennis, yes, please, let's go back to
Let's come back to the flag. Prince, you talk about the flag went through processes.
By the way, you never actually got to me. You went to Cole, you went to Prince, and I was supposed to be last.
Because you're always coming in, so I can even forget that you've already made your point on that. so let me start with you. So let me start with you on this point. Are you one of those advocating for the Liberian flag to be changed? Yes, why? And you can make the other point.
Yeah. So here is my opinion. I'm not one of those arbitrarily calling for a flag to be changed or for a name to be or for a symbol to be changed. Because this is part of the problem. When we do an arbitrary call of these things, we do not properly investigate what needs to be done to make sure the foundations and all of the things we need to do are done properly. We make a knee-jerk reaction by saying, "Oh, since we believe that the flag is a replica of the United States, so let's just change it." Now the question is how, like my brother Prince rightly said, it's an evolution. It's not something you wake up one night and you say, "Okay, rip the old flag, let's bring in a new flag." So what I am calling for revisiting our truth. Just from this debate, you can clearly tell our history is a convoluted one. We all are portraying it's very convoluted based on, in fact, we can hardly find our own books. My sister talked about books being free on Amazon. You can buy it anywhere. What about my brother in Interpreter? What about my sister sitting in Bogonima? The whole Republic of Liberia does not have a library. 90% of our population living within the borders of the country have zero access to any of the true history of our own country. We've been lied to in our schools. The Matela Nipo story was, and till today's date, is still being taught in our schools. And we're sitting here debating that it's a lie. We are in the diaspora. We have the privilege to access. So when it comes to changing of the Liberian flag, I think we have a bigger discussion to have, and not just the flag, because the flag is the symbol that represents us. We need to have a conversation about who we really are. Do we know our history? Is it available to us? When we understand that, I think the changing of the flag will be a natural evolution of what happens, and not because somebody arbitrarily called for it. So I think there's a deeper thing we need to do here, a deeper conversation we need to have nationally about who we are. We got books here that we can read, right? My children in Liberia, none of them. Our schools are still teaching our children according to what we were told that Matela Nipo's story is a lie now. I'm not going to debate it. But we learned this in school. We didn't learn it from anywhere else. And it's still being taught in our schools today. And I think that's the bigger conversation I will be interested in.
So, Cole, anytime we talk about the flag, you go to the meaning. You're not looking at the other part of it. So, do you want the flag changed?
No.
And why is that?
Because I think the meaning of this flag is beautiful, and I think the context in which it's created was incredibly profound. And I know that if it were not for this flag, I would be speaking French.
Okay, that time has passed now. So when you say the meaning, so I get the meaning. What's about the symbolism?
But what's the difference between a symbol and a meaning?
Well,
if something symbolizes something, that's what it represents. That's what it means, right? So as I've already said, I think that the flag is a profound testament to our history, and it represents, and it came out of a period of time that established it. And I think we owe a lot to that period of time. And I think that the Constitution in 1847, I think it was brilliant. And I respect the fact that my great-great-great-grandfathers were not forced at gunpoint to subdue themselves to the Republic. What happened later is a different discussion. And I think what happens a lot of times, we want to take what was established and we want to take something that happened 100 years later and put it over and put that upon people that lived 100 years earlier. So this gentleman brings up Fernando Po that happened in the 1940s. 1940s, we're talking about 1847, when Madingo people, Vai people, Loma people were selling other human beings in 1847. We're not talking about that, but we'll fast forward 100 years later and talk about Fernando Po, where a handful of criminals who sabotaged this country on many levels did some nonsense, and we're going to use that issue and blight the flag from 1847 because of it. It blows my mind.
What's written in the Constitution? Forget about that.
What was written in the Constitution was correct because we were semi-autonomous.
Right.
We were not part of the Republic.
So we're not entitled to owning land.
My ancestors were not. We're from Nimba. We did not become fully part of this country and it was by the will of our chiefs. It was by the will of our chiefs.
We can come to that historical argument, but I wanted
so it wasn't something it wasn't somebody excluding us. We excluded ourselves. We wanted our tradition. We did not want to be.
I don't believe that, but I don't want us to.
You don't have to believe it, but it's a fact. It's a documented fact.
It's not a fact.
And they even had to kill some of our chiefs eventually. Yeah. But originally, Anderson documented it. Many people documented this.
Cole, what I'm trying to say
in the 1880s, it was well documented.
What I'm trying to ask you now is, you said there was no gun put at the head of the people. So are you saying your forefathers or your grandparents participated in the designing of that flag?
My grandparents did not participate in the designing of the flag. They were not alive in 1847. My ancestors, who were alive in 1847, had no idea what the hell was going on the coast. Okay, so that republic was established, and later I have direct relatives who fought in the frontier forces to protect our borders from the French. Later, our chiefs gave warriors to protect our territory from French encroachment voluntarily. Nobody forced them. They did it because they wanted to protect their way of life. And we stopped them at the St. John River. This is documented. So we fought for the flag. We fought for the right to remain Liberian. We fought for the right to remain Liberian in the 1890s and then again in the 1920s, multiple times throughout our history. We fought the French for the right to remain Liberian. And a lot of times people don't understand that. You don't have to be somewhere at the very beginning in its inception to be part of it. Right. There's a lot of people who came to America long after 1776 that fight and die for the United States of America. Our ancestors protected our territory and our borders and even lost some of it. But we remained within the territory of Liberia, not by force, but by will, and we actually fought to do so. That's the point I'm making. And that is why I claim the flag. Because my ancestors, my more recent ancestors, in the 20th century, fought in the frontier forces to protect our boundaries and remain within the Republic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. What a great insight. As we're going to be moving on with more questions today with this Flag Day that we're celebrating.
I thought I was the one that was going to be addressing the issue first, but instead, Mr. Johnson was given the privilege.
Right. So William, hold on. Let Prince come in, and then we're going to bring in some callers to add their voice. So William, are you one of those who want the flag change? If yes, what's your ideal flag will look like?
Okay, Dennis, thank you very much. I would like to show you. This is my living room. In this living room, I have a flag here that is the flag of the United States Marines. I have a flag that is a Liberian flag. I have a flag that is a United States flag, and I have a flag here that is from South Africa, where my wife hails from. Now, why am I showing you all of these flags? All these flags are from nations that have gone through a process of transformation, with the exception of Liberia. The formulation of any nation is an experimental process that, with the idea that process will evolve to perfection or to semi-perfection. But it seems that since the day Liberia was formed, Liberia is the only baby that never walked, never crawled, but got sharp mouth and talked plenty. And still in the same wet diaper that he been in when the day was born. Why am I trying to be this? I'm not trying to be sarcastic or something or hurt anybody's feelings. But you telling me now, flag as we know it today. Imagine the American flag that had 13 stars on it has still had 13 stars to today with 51 states. Imagine how would it be felt? Would the other states not feel that they had not been included, or that they had rather been excluded? Imagine the South Africa flag. The South African flag was not as it is today. Imagine if it had been still the apartheid flag. With the people in South Africa, even although white or black, would they feel included? Imagine the United States Marine flag. This flag, the first flag that was flew in Tripoli, when the United States Marine was established, is not the same flag. But this flag has changed to a flag now today that expresses the identity and the valor and the strength of the United States Marine. But here we have a Liberian flag that was established since 18. My grandmother said, it's still the same. You telling me red means violent? To we grown people and cool people, red means a different thing to us.
Thank you.
A whole different thing to us. So my point here is that we as a nation, if we cannot evolve to the point that we will incorporate each other, embrace each other, and include each other, so that our identity can be felt within our national emblems, we should be able to evolve to that level. I think we can evolve to that level, or we can go to that process. Now, when people talk about change, a lot of people say, "Oh, you're changing. You want to change your name. You want to change this. You want to change that. Why you can't stay the same?" I know how change is often resisted, but change is a fundamental thing, part of nature, Anything that does not change and that does not adapt will not stay, will not survive its existence. So I feel Liberian flag is not inclusive. It's not a direct representation of the. Yes, you can tell me about the notion of it, the mentality, the essence of the meaning of it, but its true color and identity does not reflect my native people, and I think it can reflect that.
Dennis, there's a reason why people build the museums. Some of the things from the 1800s and stuff, to be honest with you, we need to celebrate them now in the museums and evolve and adapt to current day realities.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the meaning and the symbolism of the Liberian flag. Our guest, Mr. Prince Williams, joining us from Tennessee, is Mrs. Carl Formulev, who is joining us from the state of Georgia here, and Mr. Leo Nupulu Johnson joining us from Canada. At this time, let's bring in our callers, and we have Jimin Eastman on the line. Jimin, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Hey, Ja, you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Ja, you hear me? Okay. Again, very good conversation going on. I really appreciate your guests, Mr. Williams and Miss Famila and my brother Johnson, of course, William King. But I think because you guys talking across each other, you're not listening to everything each other saying. And here's why I say that. First of all, I want to tell you, I believe the red, white, and blue are imperialistic colors, and I'd rather they be changed to African colors representing Africa. That's where I am. However, Ms. Famula's point was correct. She said in the early days, Liberia, our native people wanted an autonomy. They allowed the incursion of these settler groups only in certain areas, but they didn't want to mix with them. In fact, they had their opinion of them as old slaves. So they didn't want to mix with these people. So it is correct. However, to Johnson's point, if you're going to start taxing people, then you have to have them represented. You can't be taxing me and then I'm not represented. I can't be allowed to vote. That was wrong. But in the beginning, it was right. Okay, everybody live on their own. But then when you start imposing hot taxes and all kinds of taxes, then I have to be represented. I have to be allowed to vote. This is how they treated the Africans who were in America. They knew they didn't have property, so they'd never be able to vote. So they put that clause there. Okay? So that had to be changed. That had to be evolved. Like Prince was saying, that has to go through an evolution. We're at a different stage. But of course, if we think about this thing, a lot of times it's separate. We try to keep people out of power. We're doing it today. It has never changed. We like to keep people up, so they kept it that way to maintain power. And that's the truth of the matter. Now, some people still feel this love, kinship to this flag. You know, I have mixed heritage all time, just all over. You know, I see those, when I look at that red, black, blue, and red, white, and blue, I think of imperialism. That's for France, Britain, and America. That's not for Africa. I think we should be Africans foremost. We can put a little corner in some little piece of in the corner of one of our flags to show that once upon a time this was the old flag. But we need to represent our African heritage and recognizing our past that was brought us here today. But definitely, we need to reflect our own.
Okay, but how would that own look like, Mr. Eastman?
Okay, the flags of Africa, black are the people. The flags of the colors of Africa, black for the people, gold for our resources, red for the blood, and green for the land. Those are African colors. Those are the full African colors. That's what should be on our flag. See that? I didn't hear.
William, there's a sound issue.
I didn't hear King.
I said Prince said red represents something else for him.
No, William, your sound is not.
Who it represents for
My
red is for the blood of the people, the blood of the martyrs, and all those who have gone. There is for the blood of the people. Green is for the land. Gold is for our resources, and black for the people.
Yeah.
Okay, that is colors of Africa, and yes, but I want another point too, Miss Pamela point. That flag saved us. First of all, it represented kind of like an extension of America. So those British and colonial people that were around kept off just because of that. We would have been speaking French, just like Miss Pamela is saying. We would have been Sierra Leoneans right now, just like what you see next door. So yes, the flag did serve a purpose in providing us an autonomy and a survival canal in that narrow colonial existence at the time. But today we are Africans, right? Okay, I like to see something reflective of our African heritage.
Thank you. And just to make the point Cole is making and you made too is it's never the right thing to read history backwards. The people did what they had to do at that time. They intentionally, as I read history, had to model the flag after the U.S. So, and that was when it was flying, that scared away the slave ships. So when they come in, they see that flag, they know that U.S. is around, so they have to flee. But let me go to this, okay? To what extent has the flag of Liberia helped to promote the Liberian identity? Let me start with Leo Johnson.
I would say, by and large, in my opinion, whether it's intentional or unintentional, there hasn't been a great deal that I have seen, at least in my lifetime, and what I am aware of, because we've had these symbols, especially something that is supposed to be our national symbol across the board, has been shrouded in controversy in many ways. Whether it's through the misinformation taught in our schools, or whether it's in some of the stories that we've heard about it, the fact that we are still debating what our national symbol that is supposed to be the most uniting thing for all of us tells me that something is fundamentally wrong. Now, for whether the arguments are proper or not, or whether the arguments are true or based on facts or not, the truth is we are going through a serious period of debate and arguments over what does that flag really mean to us. And I can tell you, when I go to the village, like last time, when I go to Vonjama or whatever, the people in the village, they have no clue whatsoever what that flag actually means to them. They do not innately identify with it. And this is why I keep saying part of the problem. If the flag truly represented all of us, then I would expect to go to Blokonji or Zwedru or Palipoken or Joploken, and somebody sees that flag right away and something there looks like them. It evokes some. When I go to whether it's in South Africa or wherever else, I would expect our national symbol should be that uniting figure that regardless of what tribe, what heritage.
But Leo, let me push you there a little bit. I mean, you can take the flag, for instance, and ascribe it to yourself, whatever way. You can say the red there represent palm butter.
Yeah.
Right?
That is true, except that there is already a laid down definition and description of what it is. So we don't have that intellectual freedom to just go ahead and say, I will take a flag and define what everything inside means for me personally. If that is the case, then it's not a uniting figure. If everybody has a completely different definition of what the flag means, then we will start to have issue, because somebody could also just take the flag and say, you know what, they red mean we should murder people. Also, somebody can actually take that and go crazy and will actually do that. So in my opinion, anything that is shrouded in controversy, whether based on facts or not, or based on historical events, clearly has the potential to divide us and not unite us.
Is that a civic education issue, or is it a...
I don't think it is a civic education issue, because in my opinion, when the flag of Liberia was established, or when it was created, it represented something at the time. And clearly, like we said, it represented our colony, but that colony expanded and included all of the other autonomous colonies that wanted to be by themselves, that did not, like our sister Cole rightly said, brought our attention to. Now that you are including everybody else, it's almost like now imposing all of the things of one colony that became more dominant where all of their symbols became the dominant symbols for everybody, rather than finding more inclusive symbols that reflected the expansion of all the other people and colonies. Now, if these places were colonies, I am very sure they existed with symbols and values and cultures. Where were they when they were being included now to become what is today the Republic of Liberia, where their symbols also treated with the same value and elevated to the point where they were reflective in what represented the entire country? I don't see that.
Thank you. Let's go to Cole. To what extent has the flag of Liberia helped or not helped to promote the Liberian identity?
I mean, clearly it ties the country, the establishment of the republic to the historic source, clearly, just by the way it looks. So the identity of this place being established by repatriated slaves is tied in the appearance of the flag. But I'll take it a step further. Our greatest revenue source in Liberia has been our flag. And the reason is because from a distance our flag looks like, or can be mistaken for, the United States flag, which was extremely powerful in the maritime realm. Because of the way the flag looks, we were able to establish a ship registry. And the majority of the revenue for the Republic of Liberia in the 20th and now the 21st century has come from single source of revenue, has come from the fact that our flag from a distance looks like the U.S. flag, and the fact that we have a really relaxed rules for registering merchant vessels. We were at one time were the number one, and then we were second to Panama in the world for ship registries. But it is because of the way our flag looks that we have over 10,000 vessels registered under our flag.
Thank you. Prince?
Well, before we address that question, and
Prince, hold on 1 minute. Cole, if you can come to the camera a little bit because you're kind of little bit far
They
back.
couldn't hear me?
No, your picture is small. We want to see that.
Okay.
Big. All right. Thank you. Okay, Prince.
the question itself is encrypted with another question. And what is that encrypted question? Is that what is the Liberian identity? Because when we talk about a national, is it a national identity or a statehood identity? When we talk about a national identity, yes, that flag has helped Liberia a whole lot. Like Kowu stated and like Mr. Johnson stated, it has served its purpose. It helped to deter it because when people see it from afar, they misconstrue it to be that of the flag of the United States. So it prevented pirates, it prevented slave traders from infringing upon Liberia at the time. But does it represent Liberia as a national identity? No, it is not. And that's why I'm calling on I call on the need that we revisit the ideas of transforming the flag that will solely represent our national identity. Whenever I fly that flag, when I was the president of the Liberian community in the Tri-City in Tennessee, whenever we fly that flag during our flag day, people come to me and ask me, "Oh, is that the Puerto Rican flag? Are you from Puerto Rico?" The reason I ask because the flags does not reflect our identity. So we can go into ourselves and look deep within ourselves and stop being afraid of change. Change is a fundamental aspect of any nation, any people. Let's be able to make sure that we shouldn't allow the concept and the idea of our democracy, of our nation, to just be stagnated in one idea, one philosophy, and one cookie-cutter mentality. Let's be inclusive. Let's bring our native brothers and sisters and fathers that Kowu spoke about that wanted an autonomy to not be part of Liberia, but now that are part of Liberia. Let's bring them in. Let the presence and the identity be felt within the Liberian flag.
Thank you, Prince.
Cool people, when we see the red, red mean ginger, or it mean we're ready for war. So we look at colors differently. So I want my people to be represented, my native people to be represented, and they have the unique sets of colors that represent them, tribal-wise and spiritual-wise. We can incorporate it in our flags, that we can find a rebirth and re-identify ourselves. It can be a rebirth of a new nation, a nation that is inclusive, a nation that has the identity that reflects each and every one of us that love that country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One last question is the pledge allegiance. Anytime we pledge allegiance, we are giving this solemn oath that we're going to defend the country, we're going to support the government, we'll do all that. The pledge allegiance is a complete copy of that of the United States. You have a problem with that? Leo?
Yes, I do. I actually do. And again, this is another example of why we can only agree that even our Constitution is modeled after that of the United States. Now, this is not unheard of for constitutions to be modeled after that of other countries, by the way. These documents are usually documents that people use to remodel. But what people do, then people adapt it to the reality of the areas. Nothing wrong having a pledge of allegiance. My only trouble with it is the fact that you just erased the name of the United States and wrote Republic of Liberia. I have a problem with that, because that tells me that it was not a discussion or a participatory process of the people who are the inhabitants of your land to determine what a pledge of allegiance should be. Instead, you found the United States one to be favorable to whoever made a decision, and you erased that of the United States for Liberia and just gave it to us to actually read. So in and of itself, what does it mean to me? The Pledge of Allegiance means something to the people of the United States because it has a story and a history to it. In Liberia, our Pledge of Allegiance has no history. I haven't read any history that is innate to Liberia. Instead, the only history we know, and it's proven that it was copied from the United States and literally pasted in our country. And even in our own Dennis Jah Constitution of 1847, it opens with a preamble by saying, "We, the people of the Republic of Liberia, were originally the inhabitants of the United States of America." That's why the preamble of the 1847 Constitution opened with. So what happened to all the other people who were not originally the inhabitants? These people are saying they were originally the inhabitants of the United States of America, originally. What happened to all of the other people who were not originally the inhabitants of the United States of America when this Constitution was actually being written? So in my opinion, the Pledge of Allegiance for me is completely erroneous. We should have a pledge, but it should not be a photocopy of the United States Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. And to your statement, even that statement originally from the United States, that's false, because some of them were captured near the Congo Basin. So that statement is not true. Cole, let me go to you on the Pledge Allegiance. Cut and paste. Any problem with that?
I think the Pledge of Allegiance is ridiculous. I've never liked it. I think that, we could have done something that was, when you read the actual words of the people that established the Republic, they said so many more profound things than what's said in that Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know why they didn't incorporate some of their thoughts, the speeches that they wrote into a pledge, because it was very powerful. It was talking about being a beacon of hope for Africa and so many other profound things that I think if children grew up saying those things, we would be in a much different situation today, than we are in. Instead, we, repeat these words of these Europeans that it doesn't apply to us. That the pledge, our founding, the founding settlers said many deeper things than that. So I think that should be revisited for sure.
Prince, will you be okay if that was in crew?
Well, here's the thing here. Whether it's in crew or Bassa or Gio or Gola, Crown, Mana, Day, Badingo, Pele, Vi.
You leave anybody out, they will come for you.
They will come for you right after the show.
Day, Kisti.
Just all the languages in Liberia.
What are any of those languages? First of all, let's listen to what it says. It says, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of Liberia and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." That is just a pledge that represents your loyalty, your commitment to your nation. Whether it will copy after America, okay, are we going to change the other one that they're swearing as well? I do solemnly swear that I will hold, defend, and protect the swearing for the president of Liberia. Are we going to change that too as well? The pledge allegiance is direct It's clear the warning chose to nationalism and patriotism and address the country as a nation. So I think I don't have no problem with the word I pledge allegiance to the flag of Liberia. I got problem with the flag of Liberia. The flag of Liberia needs to be changed.
so Prince said the flag like brother
But you want pledge allegiance to something he wants to change.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You are pledging allegiance to the same flag you want to change.
I change. Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Exactly. There you go.
Let me just. So that is a very good point. In my opinion, the counties are supposed to be the subset of the whole. Of the whole. The counties are supposed to be the subset of the whole. But when you look,
Leo, just hold on, because William, Mark, nobody hears William. So let me repeat the question he said, so that and William is so to our viewers, William is asking about the county flags. So let's talk about the county flags. Go ahead now, Leo.
yeah, so that's an interesting point, because the counties, which are the political subdivisions of our country, supposed to be a subset of the whole. And when you look at the county flags and look at the national flag, they are from Pluto and Mars. Like, there is zero resemblance in any county of the Republic of Liberia flag with the national flag. None whatsoever. In fact, you would think they are separate countries all by themselves that people are actually representing. And so you see the mismatch and misrepresentation when we talk about the national flag. The national flag represents a smaller portion compared to what we see when we look at all of the symbolism that are used. First of all, the county flags are very ugly and badly designed. In my opinion, whoever did the design.
For your own county.
My
county flag's fine. Yeah, speak for your own county.
I just speak for my own country. My ground flag is the most flag in Liberia.
I will speak clearly from the perspective of design, marketing, and communication. The symbols are okay. I got a problem with them. I'm just saying the way they are positioned and organized is not a great, in my opinion, it's not great, but I will speak for my own country before I can get in trouble here. But that is my whole point about it, Dennis.
I think there was some teenager who was experimenting with Microsoft Teams.
Trying.
So, Cole, your thoughts on the county flags?
Liberian counties, Liberian counties are not politically autonomous. They don't really, the flags is just kind of a cute little symbol, but, we don't have a federation, right? And that's one of the things we have to keep reminding ourselves, is that it wasn't established after the United States. Was actually modeled after a state government. So Liberia is actually modeled off of an individual state government, not after a national government. And so those county flags, whatever. I like Nima's flag. I think it's nice. My children came on TV, and I like their flag too.
I think the issue of the county flag is just a distraction. They're taking away from the main discussion here. Because even in the United States, every state has their own flag. Some of the state flag does not even resemble the United States flag.
You're right, Prince. I do want to say something about the United States. The state flag.
The Liberian flag. That Liberian flag needs to represent and be symbolic of Liberian people as collective.
They are related. They are tied into the national flag by the 50 stars. They represent the 50 states.
What I wanted to say.
Represent anything in the Liberian flag.
Listen, you Leo, man, you in Canada. Let me tell you about America. The United States of America is not analogous to Liberia because it's a federation. It is a federation. We have governors in each of these states. We have governments in each state. Each state in the United States has its own government. And they elect a governor, and that governor is essentially the president of the state. That is not analogous to Liberia. It's more analogous to maybe Nigeria, where you have a federation. Liberia is not a federation.
So this is a serious thing.
We have a central government, and that's it.
So why did we design our country after that of the United States then? So we did,
as I said before, Leo, Liberia is actually modeled after a single state in the United States, not after the United States. So Liberia is actually modeled after a single state in the United States. That's why we have counties and not states. So a lot of Liberians don't know this, but we're not actually modeled after the U.S. federal government. We're modeled after an individual state government.
Thank you. We didn't have a chance to read comments, but before you give your final thoughts, one comment caught my attention, and I want to bring it to you, to read it to you, because this comment, to be honest, anyway, I shouldn't discuss my feeling until after he said, serious. This is not serious.
You are the moderator. So just reserve your comment.
He said Lawrence is from Lawrence Fowler. He said this is not meaning talking about the flag. It's not serious matter. We have people being raped, corruption at the rampage, poor roads, schools, electricity, healthcare, and so forth. This is no serious discussion about flag. The real flag is the mind.
Thank you for that. What's his name? Lawrence Fowler?
Lawrence Fowler.
Thank you for bringing that home. That was needed to be said.
What you guys think? Because I'm.
I want to disagree with Lawrence Fowler. Well, we are people. I want to dispel that monolithic way of thinking that we can only deal with one issue at a time. We have a multi-complex and multifaceted problem, and we are multitask people as a nation. We can discuss the complex things. We can talk about rape. We can talk about their national identity. We can talk about all these things at the same time. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing take away from rape, as from the case of rape, the epidemic of rape that is taking place in our country. So I don't think that, I mean, the monolithic idea that we can only deal with one thing at a time. When rape is an epidemic, we want to talk about rape. No, I don't think, I want to disagree with that.
So Lawrence made me laugh because he came right on his comment and he said the counted flag represents the county, and then he got back to the counted flag discussion right after he just told us that we shouldn't be happy to see that.
I think I understand what Lawrence was saying.
Prince,
I don't think you're understanding Lawrence the way he was intending his comment. I took it as
understand what Lawrence saying.
Hold on, Prince.
So I didn't give a comment on my interpretation of what Lawrence was saying was.
Comment after Kau. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, just my interpretation of what Lawrence was doing was trying to bring light to issues, other issues, and use this as an opportunity to do so. And I think anytime we have an opportunity to shed light on the rape of our women and girls and little boys, you know, sodomy of boys is also a huge issue in Liberia. I think we should. And anytime these are, you know, urgent, life-threatening issues. So I do respect him for bringing that to the table. Anytime you have an opportunity to shed light on what's going on, we should do so. So thank you, Mr. Fowler, for bringing that up.
Yeah, so here's my comment quickly to that. I think I understand where Lawrence's sentiments are coming from, because in Liberia, we do have a tendency for running away from the main issue and using other issues to divert from it. So I understand where the sentiments is coming from, but I also want to remind Lawrence that focus on Liberia, I can say that for a fact. Almost every day, does not just dwell on one topic about the flag. Focus on Liberia has been addressing these issues for a long time with government officials, with, activists, with, you name them, different Liberians and guests. So I would like to tell Lawrence that the fact that Focus on Liberia decided to focus on this discussion because it's Flag Day is not out of place, because it's part of who we are. I think, so Lawrence, I understand where your sentiments come from, but we should be, fair to Focus on Liberia too, for always opening their platform to take on these issues almost every single day, as much as I respect and accept where the sentiments are coming from.
Yeah.
All right, and I think that Lawrence's comments have no place. I completely object, because you see, we Liberians have the tendency of always saying, "Oh, what you are doing is not important. You should be doing this." And if you watch, Lawrence himself probably had not participated in a serious rape discussion. And they always have the tendency of saying, "Oh no, don't talk about this one." And somebody put in the comment, say we can walk and chew gum at the same time. This is a big country. That's why government is no joke, because you have a lot of issues that you need to contend with. The issue of identity, the issue of symbol, the issue of meaning. Because who knows, if you do a thorough root cause analysis, you may arrive that what we are discussing today is as equally as important, because sometimes the lack of identity or not having a symbol that bind everybody together sometimes will have some of its root in the issues that we are discussing. So Lawrence, yes, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I know because there's rape in Liberia, you can still have dinner. You can still do other things.
You can still watch comedy.
Exactly. And you can still watch the UEFA.
The UEFA Champions League.
Exactly. So when people are having discussion, when we get to that discussion, let's give some respect to what the people are saying, because these are people that use their time and effort and resource. The discussion is very brilliant. You have brilliant Liberians discussing what is so important for our country. So Lawrence, thank you for where you're coming from, but this is where we stand for now. So ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap up this with your final comments. And for your final thoughts, I want you to include what the flag of Liberia means to you. And sorry, William is having some sound issues, so he's going to be managing that for the rest of the night. So let me start. So let's start with our final thoughts, and let's start with Cole, who's our first time coming here. Cole, we appreciate you, and we appreciate the knowledge that you bring to your final thoughts.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. You didn't know I was fussy, huh? But thanks for having me on.
But you are not fussy, you are feisty. I mean, put it another way.
But thank you for having me on. I really have a lot of respect for you and my fellow guests on here. It's been a pleasure. I want to encourage everybody to, those of you that have internet access, use your phone. Your phone is a library. If you can get on Facebook and burn that on Facebook, you can also access a lot of books on your history using the same tool that you hold in your hand to utilize Facebook or YouTube or WhatsApp or whatever. So your cell phone by itself is a library. There's an organization I'm a part of called Save the State. They have a huge reservoir of digital books. They have an entire digital library. Hit them up on or hit us up on Facebook. Ask for documents, ask for books. They will send it to you in your email. It's free. Books, primary source documents, primarily from written in the 1800s. Very important. You want to love your country, you got to know something before you can love it. The more I learn about Liberia, the more I love Liberia, the more I love the role that my forefathers played in protecting this country from being toppled by the French and the British. And that's what I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Prince? Prince?
Oh, Lord. Well, Dennis, first of all, let me say thanks to the Focus on Liberia family and the establishment. Thanks for allowing us to use your resources to be able to help to discuss our national issues. I want to tell our fellow Liberians who are watching, we should help to facilitate and sponsor the Focus on Liberia, because it's one of the most diverse social media platforms to discuss all issues, any issues as is relates to Liberia or have a specific focus on Liberia. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, William and Mr. Johnson. And Cole, thank you so much for your knowledge and understanding of the Liberian history. We are reading the same books. You exhausted all my historical references. You got me more enthused and more and more happy now to be able to push forward for this information to be put in our textbooks, and so it can be part of our curriculum. Our people can understand the vast contribution that everybody has made to that for the flourishing of that nation called Liberia. Now, in reference to our flag, I think that any nation that does not evolve and does not fight to be able to find its own identity, that nation will lose its essence and its importance. And I think Liberia have been in a slow process of coming to that. But I'm glad we're having this discussion now so that we can redefine ourselves. We can be able to make sure that our identity reflects us, that when we go, it will have an exclusive reference to ourselves. And we can carry it, we can become the forebearer or the torchbearer of the idea our forefather conceived and be able to channel it to the next generation. thank you so much. And we will push for the change of not only the flag of Liberia, but also the name of the capital city of Monrovia as well. Thank you very much.
How about Liberia? Change it to Pepper Bird, right? Let's go to Leo.
Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. Jai, and thank you to my sister Co and Prince as well, and to the Focus on Liberia family. I think every time I often say this when we come out here to talk about the things that we understand and the things that we know, it's not because we think we have all of the knowledge or we have all of the answers. It's part of the process of putting out there these discussions so we can share and learn from others as well. Because there are lots of people who have different aspects of our history in different ways that sometimes you think you got it all until you start to hear what other people's experiences and the things they've come across have been. And then we learn. And that's why I love these conversations, because there is no harm in letting people know that, you know what, this is the information I had. And if you are wrong, to say, yes, you know what, I learned today now is different. But if you're also right, there is no harm in being able to defend and help other people understand why you think that is the right information that you've got. That being said, I've been monitoring some of the comments, and I know people come on and again start to insult and say all kinds of things. I want you to realize this. We're not here to dismiss our country. We're here to discuss as to how we can all work together to make it better, regardless of our disagreements and different sentiments that we bring. I am convinced that we all have one objective, and that objective is for Liberia to become a better place for our children and our grandchildren, and being able to celebrate ourselves, our cultures, and who we are as a people. But I'll say this to our people. As much as I disagree with the Liberian flag and think it is controversial, it is what we have now. So I defend it with my blood. I fight for it. I will hold it up proudly, because that's what we have. We will work with what we have as we talk about making it better and evolving it. We can say, oh, because I disagree with the Liberian flag, so let's dismiss it. So to all of the people online, we're not enemies, okay? We were having a debate and we were trying to help people understand. So don't start to take sides. You're on Leo side, or you're on Kausa, or you're on Chasa. At the end of the day, we are all talking about the same thing. And to finally close, I would say the greatest deception we've continued to do to our young people in Liberia has been to hide our history from them. And why I'm saying that is because our history is completely inaccessible. Some of us in the diaspora, God has blessed us, and we have the resources, and like we can go online. But think about the entire Liberian education system not having access to one public library, to one reservoir that any child can go to and challenge an analysis from a teacher and be able to actually look at it. So I would advise all of us that it is time now we start to sound this bell even louder, that the deception that we've continued to live under of people telling us fairy tales of what happened in Liberia with no ability to access any proper records to be able to determine it is a serious menace to our, if not anything, it is the biggest menace to our society, because our children are growing up with misinformation, with the wrong information of who they are. So thank you, everybody. It was a great time being here, and I really appreciate discussing with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We want to thank you so much for your time. And to all our viewers watching us, we say thank you very much. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 12 noon, we're going to have the Hour of Politics with Sonny Sie. He's going to be interviewing Mr. Martin Colley, who is in exile, the voices from exile. On Thursday, we're going to have our civics education series with Dr. Joe Baba. And then on Sunday, we're going to discuss what we call the Southeastern factor. There has been a lot of cry, during from 1847 to 1980, we were hearing Congo country. Then when we had President Doe, we had Crown people, there's Crown people. Now we have Southeast. So what is this Southeast? What is the geography and the people? And also what has been the role of Southeastern Liberians in the Liberian politics?
This from the South.
Sunday at 6 o'clock with Professor K. Moses Namwe. You don't want to miss that. Until then, from all of us here at Focus on Liberia, we want to say happy August 24 Flag Day program. That's the time, man. I don't know if any of you had the privilege of going to BTC to drill and having all the fun. If you didn't I'm sorry for you. But again, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, Judge, I thought that you're old man. We know you're old man.
Right. You see someone that's if you didn't join BTC, sorry. And if you didn't take part in that Flag Day competition. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to say good night and God bless you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
We are all Liberians.
Bless you
Bye-bye.
too. Good night.
Good night,
Yeah.
everyone.
Good night, everybody.